"No, my child," he answered me in a whisper. "You may never see the toys from this commission. They must only go to she who requested them." As the only child of one of London's finest toy makers, I was not accustomed to being banned from toys. In the past, I had been the first playmate of all of Father's creations. My 10-year-old self felt this great weight of injustice at the words he'd spoken to me. That was how I arrived at a very sleepless night, and the idea of a midnight walk came into my mind. Father always kept his workshop locked, and I knew that he hid the key within the stove at night time. Once my nimble fingers had retrieved the great iron key, my bare feet padded the length of the house in my silent quest. I would just take a peek at the Clockwork wonders, just for a moment or two, so that I could go to the country satisfied. No one would have to know that I had been in the workshop, not if I was tremendously careful. The cold stone floor of the workshop sent a shiver from my toes all the way up to my head as I fumbled to light the nearest candle. A chilling breeze howled outside the closed shutters as the cluttered room became illuminated by this slow-burning flame. I had never been to the workshop at night before, and every tool and appendage now cast these strange, jagged shadows upon the stony walls that encased me. Eager to retreat from this dark and cavernous place, I spied the wooden crate that I was after. It rested on the long, wide workbench at the far side of the room, and I had to climb up onto a three-legged stool to reach it. Kneeling on the stool, I leaned forwards with a fearful glee, my small hands groping to loosen the crate's lid. I could not suppress the gasp that echoed in the workshop, my eyes expanding with greed and delight at the silver treasures inside that box. 24 soldiers stood to attention, each about a foot high and capped off with a painted metal helmet. Unable to contain my elation, I reached into the box and pulled one figure out for inspection. As my eyes beheld this recruit in his fine, polished armour, my gaze was drawn to the beauty of his tiny face. He was grey in colour, but his visage was not metal, and nor was the slender body that was encased beneath the armour. The little soldier felt oddly warm in my small grip. His stoic face had these dainty features that seemed all too perfect to have been sculpted by a craftsman's hands, even a craftsman as talented as my father. I set him down upon the workbench and reached into the box for another, astonished to find that this soldier had an entirely different face to the last one. Though every one of these 24 soldiers were identical in height and colour, each had their own distinct personality. This secret treasure that my father had sought to keep hidden from me, it was the greatest temptation I had ever seen in my young life. The soldiers felt more than just toys to me. They were friends. A bitter jealousy rose in my tiny heart at the thought that the Queen's children would soon own these incredible gifts. I wanted to sneak one away and take it to the country with me. I quickly removed all of the soldiers from the box and lined them up along the bench to inspect them. They stood to rapt attention with me as their general, my greedy gaze falling on each one for an appraisal. I would take the strongest, the most beautiful warrior to be my own. I found him at the very end of the line. The little creature had slightly pointed ears, and he held his tiny sword in long-fingered hands that tapered to shoulders that were tiny but proportional, broad even for his size. His jaw was set with this brave, resilient look, and his eyes gleamed almost red by the now blazing candle flame. If he was to be my stolen prize, then I would have to be sure that he was in perfect working order. A silver key jutted from the space between his shoulder blades. I gave it a dozen good turns, and then I set him down again to watch him spring to life. The soldier did not move in the mechanical way that I had expected, but with graceful steps as he turned himself on the spot. When he faced me again, he gave a little bow, which I returned, and then he set about walking towards the next soldier in line. When he reached his nearest fellow, he turned the key on the back of that soldier, and that soldier too suddenly came into motion. I watched in fascination as this key-turning deed was repeated all the way down the line, until all 24 of the soldiers had formed a battalion in front of me. Tell us, small person, who do you belong to? I gaped at the voice, which had come from the soldier I'd picked as my favourite. The toy maker, I stammered in replying to him. I am the toy maker's child. Favourite smiled, and I couldn't help the doubt that crept into my mind as I beheld him. Surely this moment had to be a dream. There was no possible way that my father had created this incredible troupe that now stood addressing me. Favourite was something highly fantastical, part clockwork, but part being from another world entirely. We were told what to do when we meet the child of Victoria, but we were not told what to do upon meeting you. I folded my arms with a petulant glare and said, I am much more important than Queen Victoria's children. Whatever they're getting, I want the same. Favourite's smile became a widened grin, displaying a row of tiny triangular teeth. The little soldier looked to his fellows, and the expression started to catch on among the ranks. Soon they were all gazing up at me with this same sort of greed that I had cast down upon them when I first opened the box. As you wish. Favourite cried this as he leapt from the bench. The squadron was small, but they were heavy, and their tiny swords left stinging wounds as they pinned me to the cold stone floor. All at once I found that I could not struggle against them, as though this fierce, quite supernatural force had arrested all my motion. It seemed to me that Favourite was growing larger as he peered down at my face. You should have brought your fairy catcher, child of the toy maker. That's what your father did when he found us. The next morning, my father called loudly into the street, hollering my name as Mother wept in the doorway. I know this because I saw them through a crack in the box as the brigade carried the crate towards the royal carriage for transportation. If my father had thought to check on his creations on the morning of their departure, he'd have discovered 25 Clockwork Imps were on their way to Queen Victoria that day. Hey everybody, it's your boy Mr. Breakdown, bringing you the conclusion of this two-part story, The Clockwork Imps. Did you guess what was coming from the first half? I'm interested to know. Comment below if your guess was right, or if in the week that's passed between these videos you weren't sure. Maybe you got it wrong. Maybe you thought something else entirely was going to happen. I'd be fascinated to know. Do let me know. So, as usual, you can catch all of the action where I create these looks and stuff on Twitch. You could be watching my live musical kind of stuff on StageIt, or even better than all of that is my Patreon, which is basically like a whole archive of everything that I've created that's not available for public view. So there's like full-length shows and concerts on there. There's literally like hours of free entertainment that you can't get anywhere else. And you know, if you love drag and you want to support the kind of things that I'm doing, and you want to support a disabled drag king, a queer performer who is essentially working from home, I guess, for some of this, I certainly hope to see you, you know, liking, subscribing, doing all sorts of fun things. I'm everywhere on the internet, you know, all the usual places that you can find me. But yeah, leave me a comment, drop me a line, drop me a follow, tell your friends, do all of that good stuff. And I'll be back next week with a brand new story, MBD style. Good night.